Konnichiwa everyone! It's Dan from JaDan.co.uk and today I'm going to give you some tips to start learning Japanese. Because that way it's going to cement the sounds in your brain. Ditch the romanji. Bang! Learn a bit of Japanese. That's right! Today's video is all about getting you guys on the road to learning Japanese. Japanese is a super difficult language and it feels like you're going to have to climb a mountain. Then when you get to the top of that mountain, climb a different mountain because there's so much to learn. But when I started, I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I just kind of learned stuff and hoped for the best. This is the stuff I wish I knew when I started learning Japanese. So get a pen and paper and let's make some notes and learn how to learn Japanese. Before you learn anything in Japanese, you need to understand the Japanese writing systems. So they use Hiragana, Katakana and Kanji, and they're all widely used, so you've got to know them all eventually. But I suggest starting with just Hiragana. And what I suggest doing is like studying it, and I mean really studying it, not just how to read it. Also learn how to write it, also learn how to say it. It's really important that you know this before you start anything. So what I suggest doing is going on the internet, looking for some resource that shows you how to write the Hiragana. Check the description box, I'll put a link to something in there for you. And every day, just write a million times, write them down. And while you're writing it, say it like, ah, ah, ah. So this way your brain's connecting the sound to what you're seeing and what you're writing, so you're going to remember it a lot better. You can also use like flashcards to learn this as well, but I highly suggest writing it and saying it a lot, because that way it's going to cement the sounds in your brain. After you've got the Hiragana down, you need to add the Katakana next. Katakana is the same sounds, but they're usually written differently and they're usually used for words of foreign origin. So a lot of foreign words will be written in Katakana. So you already know the sounds, so that's cool. But learning the different writing, like the different strokes, the different pictures, or whatever you want to call them. So this is like half as difficult as Hiragana. You've already got the sounds down. You already know how to read and write the Hiragana, so just adding the Katakana to what you already know shouldn't be that difficult. So within that first month, studying Hiragana and Katakana every day, you're going to have got it down, I think. It's not so difficult. The next step, after you've got the Hiragana and Katakana down, is to start building a vocabulary base. In any language, you're going to need some words if you want to actually use it. So I would strongly suggest learning some way to pick up vocabulary. There's 1,000 ways to do this. Depends on what kind of learner you are too. If you're kind of like a practical learner, putting post-it notes on stuff with the Japanese will be okay. It's not the most practical way, but some people work that way. You could also learn vocabulary in groups like body parts, or maybe like days of the week, or adjectives, or whatever. You can learn in groups if you find it easier to remember words in a group. Or you can use something like the JLPT language testing system. What this does, it like groups everything in levels. The beginner level is JLPT N5, and there's a list of vocabulary that goes in that section. You could just literally learn these, and how you learn them is up to you. I strongly suggest writing them out. I strongly suggest learning to read the words, and using a flashcard system to constantly learn new words. Maybe 10 new words a day over a couple of months. You're going to quickly build up your vocabulary. So the third step, it's kind of like step 2.5, it goes hand in hand with learning vocabulary, is start learning kanji as soon as possible. I didn't. I'm only just starting to learn kanji and I really wish I'd started like day one. So when you learn a new word, you may as well try and learn the kanji while you're at it. What kanji is the characters that come from Chinese, and they represent, like, rather than a sound like Hiragana and Katakana, they represent a word or a concept. And each kanji has a couple of different ways to read it usually, and there's thousands and thousands of them. So the sooner you start, the better. It's widely used in Japanese too, so it can really stunt your progress if you don't learn the kanji. So I think in the JLPT N5 level, there's maybe 100 kanji or something like this, maybe 200, I'm not sure. And if you study them every day while you're studying the vocabulary, it'll really stick. So learn to write the kanji and learn to read it, and learn to recognize it as part of your vocabulary base. So maybe on your flashcards you have the kanji for sun, and you also have the word for sun. And that way you can recognize the symbol to mean sun, and you can also know how to say it using hiragana or katakana. So that is something I wish I did day one. Kanji is super hard. The sooner you start, the better. And if you start day one while you're acquiring everything, you're going to be grateful in the long run. The next step, after you've got a decent vocabulary base to draw on, is actually to start using the language. And to start using the language, you can't just blurt out random vocabulary. You're going to need some grammar patterns. You're going to need to know how to make some sentences. So at this point, I recommend investing in some kind of textbook. The popular ones that people use when they're beginning Japanese is Genki or Mina no Nihongo. There's 2 volumes for each one at the beginner level, and they're basically the same as each other. So each lesson will have like a context. Maybe we're talking about Robert's trip to Okinawa or something, right? And there's like a little reading, and you can read the little context, the little story, and find out what's going on. After that, you've got a word bank with all the words for that lesson, most of which you'll probably already know because you studied before you started. And then you've got like an in-depth look at the grammar that's used in the lesson. So the grammar patterns, why it's like this, decent English explanations too. And then at the end you've got like a practice section, so you can actually practice doing what you've just learned. Each of these also comes with a workbook if you want to buy it for extra practice, and it's really, really useful, I think. So the final tip today, well, not really a final tip. It's more of an overarching tip of everything we've discussed in this video so far, is practice, practice, practice. Whether it's day one learning a, I, u, e, o in hiragana, or whether it's like day 1,000,000 or whatever day it is when you've studied Genki 1 and 2 and you've got a decent vocabulary and grammar base. All the way through this you should be learning, and you should be reviewing, and you should be practicing. There's lots of ways to do this. Me personally, I use a flashcard system on my phone, so whenever I've got 10 minutes spare, I can sit and review what I've already learned, or I can learn some new words or some new kanji or something like this. It's really useful to have that with me all the time, so whenever I've got downtime, bang, learn a bit of Japanese. You could do Japanese lessons. If you're lucky and there's someone local to you, you could take Japanese lessons with them. If not, there's italki.com, you can take Japanese lessons on the internet, and that's going to consolidate what you've learned, as well as the native speaker can pick out any holes in your knowledge, so you can fill those holes before they become a bad habit. There's also language exchange. Using the internet or face-to-face, you can meet people and use your new language skills in a way that is different from how you learned them in the book. Maybe there's some way I've never thought of that you know, I don't know. If you've got any useful practice tips that I haven't mentioned, go to the comments section below and let me know. A final kind of warning to anyone starting to study Japanese is ditch Romanji as soon as possible. Don't use it. Romanji is the alphabet writing for the hiragana and the katakana. So why bother? It's going to slow you down in the long run. We don't use Romanji in Japan. Like, I never see Romanji, and if I do, it's terrible. So don't waste your time. I know why people want to use it. It's familiar. They already know how to read it. They already know how to write it. So they feel like, oh, I can just fall back on this. But the problem is, if you have a flashcard and you've got the kanji and the hiragana and the katakana, and you also write the Romanji on there, your brain is going to ignore all the Japanese stuff and just read the Romanji, which is not helping you in the long run. We don't really see it in Japan. We don't really use it. So why bother using it as part of your study? The sooner you ditch it, the sooner you will realize, wow, I've got to learn all these new writing systems properly. And the sooner you get rid of that kind of safety net, the better, and it's going to mean that you'll improve a lot quicker. So that's my final tip, ditch the Romanji. Great! So that was my video about starting to learn Japanese. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, do me a favor, bang a thumbs up on the video, hit the comments section below, let me know what you thought. And if you haven't already, do me a favor and hit the subscribe button. I'm trying to get to 2,000 subscribers by the end of the year, so I'd really appreciate that. Anyway, I've got to run, so as always, until next time, jamata!